So there's this rooftop bar on the top of a London, like top skyscraper, okay? A guy walks in, sits next to a regular. The regular's there drinking beer real fast. He turns to him, the guy who just walked in, he goes, you know why I drink this beer this fast? I figured out in a physics class, if you drink beer fast enough, the bubbles will condense and make you lighter. Watch this. And he ran to the edge and jumped off a 60-story building. And of course, this guy, newcomer, was like, oh my God, I just witnessed a suicide. 5 minutes later, elevator opens. There's the guy. Comes and sits down and goes, I told you, it's awesome. Try it. So the guy goes, this is going to be the greatest bar trick of my life. He goes, I want whatever he had. Takes 10 beers, drinks them real fast like this. Goes, I'll see you in 5 minutes. Jumps off, runs up, jumps, woo, splatter, dead. The bartender turns to the guy and goes, Superman, you're such an asshole. I think that's a good, Superman, you're such an asshole. Question.
Yeah, so at what point do you move on from an existing business to start a new one versus trying to double down on an existing one?
So here's a good way to think about it. This is how I will try to tell you the most scientific, everybody's got weird opinions, so let me try to clear the air from emotion. One of the simplest, and I'm going to oversimplify it, Warren Buffett, the key, you have your KPIs. You need to know your KPIs, your key performance indicators. How do you, like, if you're lifting, like Danny Hester, this guy that I got training Alex that won Mr. Olympia, it's the highest prestigious thing. He has a KPI like body fat. He wants to be 5%. He has about 19.5-inch arms, and I've measured his waist like 29.5. It's a freak of nature. But he knows how to know if he's on track. So you got to know your KPI. The KPI, the most important one in capitalism that nobody talks about. KPI, we don't care about biceps in making money, okay? What you care about is a term, and there's different ways of thinking about this term, but return on tangible assets. You can say return on capital, just to oversimplify this and not be super technical, okay? So Warren Buffett only cares about one thing. Return on my capital. What's the percentage? So this is a complicated number, more than you think. A lot of people use ROI, they use EBITDA, they use IRR. This is why this is interesting. So James, let's say you have a business that is doing, let's just use round numbers. So you got a business doing $1 million and you've invested, I don't know, their initial outside capital. We'll just oversimplify it as outside capital. You put in $300,000 into it. Okay, so you put in $300K of outside capital. Now, here's the problem. Let's say this thing is spinning off 15% profit margins. So you're making $150,000. So that looks good, return on capital, right? Looks like you're making 50% ROI. You put in $300,000, you got back $150,000 in your pocket the same year. That's good, but the problem is, what are the forms of capital that exist in this planet? There's really 3, by the way. Who went to business school? Anybody? Anybody went to college? Okay, they teach you this in economics, but nobody remembers it. Okay, what are the 3 forms of capital? Anybody? The prize goes to the person. They get $1 million. If they answer in the next 2 seconds. 1, 2. Okay, nobody got it. I like to set the terms of my bets. Yes?
Human capital.
Okay, that's warmer. We could call, I would say that they're called the classic factors of production. So you have land, labor, capital. Those are the 3 classic forms of production. LLC is an easy way to remember it. So in the modern world, what's land? This is a trick question.
Real estate.
Maybe, but are the richest people in the world in real estate even one of the top 3? No. So that in Moses' day, Abraham's day, whoever owned the most land had the most. But in the modern world, yes, there's a lot of billionaires and millionaires with real estate, but the top is not. Jeff Bezos doesn't own much real estate.
And what?
There you go, perfect. Land, to me, in the modern world, is your network, your social network. It's the ability to call somebody up. Richard Branson one time needed $500 million on 24 hours notice, or he would lose all of Virgin, if you read the Virgin story. And he called up like 20 people, and one guy gave him $500 million, one bank. That's the power of your network. Trust me, he had to have pre-existing relationships. You don't just call somebody, hey, I'm cold calling you over dinner. Quick question, never met me, got a really good deal. I just need you to wire me $500 million. I'm gonna give you 24 hours. No, you're gonna have 0% close rate, right? So network. Number 2 is labor. And a lot of you have this, meaning you need to know how to do stuff, operational skill. So James, you have operational skill. You've been operating stuff. You have a good network, and now you have capital. So the way I think about this number, this is 50% return on tangible assets if you don't factor in your time, your use of your network. If this 300 grand had gone into something else, like me and Alex put 200 grand into MentorBox, and we got into a 7-figure company in 2 weeks, and we have 65,000 recurring members on subscription. That's a good return on capital, because I can't think of anything else he and I could have put 200,000 in. And who cares? This one right here, it's a small amount of money. It is scaling 50%, but it's a deceitful number. You got to factor in. So this is a complicated question, very complicated. The question is, what should James Swanwick do, given the people he knows, the amount of skill he has, and the capital that's going to return him the most money? So, for example, you might be better off using your network and raising $2 million for a brand new venture. Or you have to factor in, you might be better to just raise $2 million and put it more into the businesses you already have. That might work. So anybody who gives you an oversimplified answer is an idiot to this question. This is a complicated question. This is like, what is the meaning of life question. If anybody goes, oh, meaning of life is to fucking eat chips or something, you're just like, what? Or it's like, oh, live a good life. Oh, thank you for this very profound thing. The meaning of life, people have tried to figure it out for a long time, and there's a lot of good theories on it. You have nihilistic people, Epicurean people, Stoic people. Like, you have all kinds of good theory. You have the Amish, which is live great lives, very happy. Theirs is like to serve God and be a good Christian. And you've got people who are like Felix Dennis. He's like, I spent $100 million on coke, blow, and hookers, and I love my life. Different philosophies. But all successful people have some things in common. So even though this is a hard question, there's some principles in common. And the biggest one is, you have to factor in more than just your return on capital. You need to think about scale. So for example, what's the biggest your business can scale to? They call this TAM, your total addressable market. Let's say I dominate 100% of the global education business for underwater basket weaving. I only put 100 grand in. I make 5 million a year. What's the problem with that business? What's the total addressable market possible on planet Earth for underwater basket weaving? None. I'm done. I've capped it out. There ain't new people coming into that market. So I might go, well, I have a very good return on my capital. I put 100 grand in, I make 5 million, but there's no TAM to this business. Now the Uber guy in some ways hasn't had good return on capital, because 12 billion has been invested, I think, last count. There's been no profit yet. So what's the return on tangible assets if you only take capital to profit? It's negative. So by that measure, you'd be like, well, I don't want to do Uber. But what's the total addressable market of people who drive in cars? And if you can replace the need for people, how big is the car market? Trillions. Trillions. You see what I'm saying? So you have to balance short term, I can get this much money in my pocket, but I'm spending my life force, energy, and the prime of my life on something that's small. It's a good thing about real estate, by the way. Real estate's a good default if people don't know what to do, because real estate's the largest asset in the world. So if you get good at it, the total addressable market, you can go into Singapore, Russia, you can go anywhere you want in the world. I recommend with real estate, by the way, try to stay in the United States. US is still by far the best real estate place in the world. I've had a business partner who's like, I'm buying all this stuff in Costa Rica and Eastern Europe. I said, listen to me. He was in his 60s. And so I was young, and he didn't want to listen to me. But I said, I'm repeating The wise words of my mentor, Alan Nation, who's older than you. Be careful outside the US. I'll just warn everybody here. Sometimes shit is cheap for a reason. Really. So, of course, he didn't listen to me, bought up all this shit in Colombia, and it's kind of like the Ponzi scheme thing where you have no actual money left. I mean, it looks like you're making money, but you're not making money. So, little side note. Real estate is a great game to play at the large, high level because of TAM. But there's other things. Tech, how big's the total tech market? It's going to replace everything. Soon, AI is going to be driving your cars, growing your food for you, flying your airplanes for you. We might not have to work in 50 years. It might be universal income. Who knows? So that's a good game to learn. Make sure I guess what I'm saying in synopsis, James, is make sure you have a good calibration of the value you bring to an economy. Don't overestimate, by the way. The problem with narcissism is an overestimation, okay? And all of those dark triad things like narcissism, Machiavellianism, psychopathy. You know why psychopaths, about 80% of people in prison are psychopaths? Or some sociopath? They don't think they'll be caught. They're too cocky. And so all the non-psychopathic criminals aren't in prison yet. They're walking around and they're like, I murdered somebody, I got away with it because I didn't like I burned the body. There's literally people, I saw somebody, a murder case recently. The dude, they killed somebody and like put him in his trash can in the front yard. That's how cocky this guy was. He was like, I'll never get caught. There was like an arm hanging out when the trash guy picked up the thing. So some entrepreneurs overcalculate. They're like, I meet so many people like, I'll be a billionaire. I'm like, really? I automatically bet against you. Anybody who says that is usually a moron. Now, if they say that to themselves or they say that in private, I might buy it. But anybody's like, I'll be a billionaire. No, you won't. Overcalibration. But some of you, maybe you, James, since I know you, you have a miscalibration problem. So you spread your wealth of knowledge, network, over small markets that at the peak will make, you'll never have more than 1% of a market. McDonald's has 5% of the fast food market. McDonald's. Anybody think you're going to start a McDonald's real fast? Nothing. People think, I see people doing projections. They're like, well, Todd, the total market is $100 billion. I'll gather 5% of that. I'm like, whoa, stop. You won't get 5%. Very few things have 5%. Google has like 60%. And they'll soon be shut down by the US government. Antitrust stuff will come in and kick you. You won't be able to do that for long. It's not sustainable. I think Uber has like 40 or 50% now. But in some countries, they have like 2%. So don't overcalibrate, but a lot of you undercalibrate. And so what happens is you're spreading your network, your labor skills, your capital skills over just ding-dong things. I just meet people all the time doing stupid stuff, I mean, look, if you're passionate about it and it's a small market, that's fine. If you love underwater basket weaving because your grandma was an underwater basket weaver and your grandmother before you and you're like, I don't care about money. But if you ask me what you should be doing with your life, it should be a cold calculation of these three things. And it's hard to do. And like Charlie Munger says, he says, listen, the thing that has fooled more high IQ people in history is opportunity cost. Because what this all boils down to is more important than this is OC, Real Housewives of OC. Opportunity cost. What else could you be doing? The cost of a marriage is not the marriage. It's anybody here ever met somebody who married the wrong person and you know it and everybody else knows it? At least 50 to 70% of people marry the wrong person. What could be more tragic? You can't be married to two people at one time unless you live in Utah or something. So you take your one opportunity cost to be married, joined with one person very closely, and yeah, you marry an average person, but the enemy of the great is the good. And so you have to go, what is great? But you can't overcalculate. Most of us, me, people here, they say Jeff Bezos is the smartest. People that know him say he's the smartest person in the world right now. There's no coincidence that he's the richest man in the world. Bill Gates won the #1 math kid in America, and Steve Ballmer was number 2. That's how they became friends. But barring you trying to be on the top of the Forbes list, you're probably under calculating your opportunity cost. So my answer, James, is you should move around probably more. People should probably move around a little more than they think. I meet a lot of entrepreneurs. I have a big entrepreneur network. My gut feeling is about 90% of entrepreneurs are married to the wrong husband or wife. And it's apparent to everybody. It's apparent to me. Marry somebody. Almost every rich person has an amazing spouse. Jeff Bezos had a good spouse. That's why he gave her $40 billion, because she helped him build Amazon. Bill Gates has been married to Melinda Gates forever. Rockefeller had an insanely good wife, and he almost married the wrong person. And a lot of biographers say one of the big things that made him wealthy, he had a wife that conserved capital. She once told somebody, why would a woman want more than 2 dresses? Well, for Rockefeller at the beginning, it was great to have a wife that spent less money than he did. He once bought gloves. Mink gloves was the most expensive thing he did for like 25 years. He took every ounce of capital and invested it in business. So be careful you're not married to the wrong business. And put it this way, do you think it's easier to marry the wrong person or the right person?
Easier to marry the wrong person.
Wrong. You think it's easier to pick the wrong business and spend 10 or 20 years in it, or the right? How many people do you meet where you're just like, wow, this person picked the right career. They did everything. Nobody. Except if you met Mark Zuckerberg, you'd be like, well, this kid probably picked the right thing.
Yeah.
So you need to be like Mark Zuckerberg. And maybe you're not Rain Man like Mark Zuckerberg, but my guess is people are 40, 50 times underperforming their potential. 40, 50 times. And so, yeah, think hard on all your options before you get married. My grandma's always like, I should have married a different guy. I'm like, Grandma, I'm glad you did it. It's the one exception. You don't want your grandparents to go back in time and marry someone else. She's like, yes, I had this. My grandma loves English guys. She's like, my grandma only cares about smart guys. My grandpa was a smart child prodigy kid, and she's like, but he was such a mean guy. And she was unhappily married for 40 years. And then she got remarried at 80. She fell in love at 80. A guy that she knew from 50 years before wrote her love letters for 1 year, correspondence, and they got married. And so she had redemption, but it's better to not find love at 80. It's better. Some of you are going to find love at 80 with your businesses. And it's better to find it at 20, 30, 40, 50. You don't want to be finding it at 60, 70, or 80. You run out of testosterone and energy. So, long-winded answer. But this would be a good YouTube video. I may put this on YouTube. So James, my guess is you're probably underperforming 5 to 20 times what you should be doing. But that's about all I can tell you, because the rest you're going to have to figure out yourself, because I can't tell you what you should do. It's a tough one. And it doesn't mean you need to transition out immediately. It doesn't mean you drop everything you're doing. In general, you can't do that. It's kind of like if you get married, you realize it's the wrong person, and you have kids together. Sometimes you don't just walk out the door the next morning and leave everybody in the lurch. You got to own up to the mistakes, and you got to work your way out of the marriage real slowly. Yeah, so good question, James. Maybe not as good of answer, but that's the best thing I got at this stage of my life. I'm sure there's other influencers. I'll just give you a fucking 10-second answer to this question. It's like, what should you be doing? I mean, I see people giving out complicated life advice in like 4-second sound bites. I'm going, let's lead the world astray. Who should you marry? Someone you love. It's like, oh, okay, thank you for the magnificent insight. Or only do what you love. Well, you know what my mentor told me about only do what you love? He said, don't do what you love, because anything you love, once you do it as a job, you'll no longer love it. He said, do what you like. He said, don't marry somebody you lust after. He said, because lust goes away. Marry someone you like.